Well, these are strange days, brothers and sisters. They've been this whole week of Holy Week, which is always, for me, one of the most joyful and just magnificent weeks of the whole year, has certainly been missing some of its joy and its solemnity because of your absence. So know that you're greatly missed, and our celebrations aren't the same without you here, and without many of the other sort of things that we do that add solemnity and dignity to the celebrations of Holy Week, and especially of the resurrection. As we celebrate the Lord's passion and death and resurrection, and the institution of the Eucharist and the institution of the priesthood, and all of the mysteries that are so close to the center of our lives as Christians, it's right that we do so with dignity and solemnity, and with song and with smoke and sights and smells and everything, because we're bodily creatures. We aren't just angels, but we have bodies, and we should engage all of our senses in everything that we do, especially in our worship of God. And so our inability to do that is certainly felt this week. I think it's wonderful that we're able to live stream this so you're able to participate from home. But it's not the same. It's not the same for you, and it's not the same for me without your presence here. So it's been, in some ways, a hard Holy Week, and one that's taken on a bit of a sadder tone. And in some ways, it just doesn't feel like Easter. It doesn't feel like, without the celebrations, and without all of these pews being full, and without all the activities and the family celebrations and everything that accompanies it, just doesn't feel like Easter. The same joy just isn't there. And the thing that I've been reflecting on over the course of this week, that I think the Lord has allowed me to see, as I've sort of wrestled with this myself, is that Jesus is not risen from the dead because I feel it. Jesus is not risen from the dead because of the way that we celebrate that here. Jesus is not risen from the dead because of the number of people who fill these pews on Easter Sunday. Jesus is risen from the dead, and sin and death are destroyed. And nothing will change that reality. The coronavirus, certainly not. Jesus is risen from the dead and is the center of history and is the center of our life, and that's an objective fact. Nothing can take that reality away. So I think the Lord wants to invite us to see that more clearly. Not to say that all of the externals and all the other things that we do to celebrate the resurrection aren't important, because they're essential. And we all, I think, feel the pain of that absence. But I think at the same time, to all of us who might feel a bit of sadness, who might feel that something's just not right, there's not the same Easter joy, I think the Lord wants to help us return to what's at the heart of this celebration. All the externals point us back to that reality, and they're very good for that reason. But what is it that's at the heart of this? It's what Jesus has done for us in destroying sin and death. It's what Jesus has done for us in giving us peace and bringing us into a relationship with God. It's what Jesus has done for us in making known the love of the Father through his cross and resurrection, and in opening heaven for us, and in destroying death, and beginning the new creation on this day of the resurrection, and allowing us to enter into that Sabbath day of rest, and to have new life in him, and the knowledge that because of Jesus, there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God. And the coronavirus changes none of that. So the invitation for us then is to return to the core truth of what God has revealed on this day in raising his Son victoriously from the dead and trampling down sin and death. The Lord wants us to deeply know all of these truths and to have them more firmly engraved on our hearts so that we can rest in them, to find a place of peace and security and stability in the midst of all the other things that are not stable around us. The resurrection of Jesus is the anchor of our lives. It's the anchor and the center of history, and nothing can change that. So how ought we to celebrate this day then, given that most of the normal celebrations that we're accustomed to are taken away from us. St. Paul says in the second reading, "Therefore let us celebrate the feast, not with the old yeast, the yeast of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." That is to say, let us celebrate the resurrection by allowing the Lord's victory, by allowing the power of the resurrection to get in and to change our lives, to live not in our old sin, our old wickedness, but to live in sincerity and truth before God. The greatest evidence for the resurrection after the risen body of the Lord Jesus himself is the testimony of the lives that have been changed by that power. So I'd like to invite us on this Easter day and in this Easter season, which is sure to continue to be a bit of a strange one, I'd like to invite us to spend some time in prayer going back to that sort of central question: how has the resurrection of Jesus really made a difference in my life? How is it that Jesus has really acted and changed my life? And to, in prayer, sit with the Lord and ask him to help us to see that. And to spend some time just thanking him simply for that most precious gift of the new life that we have in him, which nothing can take away and which is greater than any other expression we could find or way we could find to celebrate that reality. How is it the Lord that he's really changed me and has been at work in my life? And then secondly, just to take this opportunity as well to recommit ourselves to the Lord and to offer ourselves to him and to have his resurrection as the anchor and the center of our lives, and to recommit ourselves to allowing that power to shape our lives every single day. So however strange and different this Easter day might be, it remains true and always will be true that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead and has destroyed sin and death. And for that reason, this is the day that the Lord has made. So let us rejoice and be glad in it.